Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It's Me, Not You. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello, Jake.
Hi, it's me, and you're you.
So, for us demons, countesses, and women and men, we'd like to welcome you to our show. So for today's episode, we wanted to talk about forgiveness, the power of forgiveness, and what it can do for you spiritually, emotionally, physically, everything like that. So I'm going to tee this off to Melissa because she's a golfer. And let's talk about forgiveness.
I'm a bad golfer, but I try.
All that matters.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about forgiveness just based on how crazy the world is right now. But I think a lot of things come down to forgiveness of self. Like, I think that's a big place to work on because I think that's where a lot of people's pain comes from is, making mistakes in life and yes, taking ownership of those, but also forgiving ourselves, forgiving ourselves for things that we've done in the past. It's really easy to look at what we know now, the person that we are now, the tools that we have now, and judge ourselves based on, those things from before. So I do, I guess I really like this topic too, because I deal with a lot of gray spirits who are stuck here because they're looking for forgiveness. So I'll help them with forgiveness of self. So when I see gray, all that is that's just my way of knowing that they're still kind of here. And I've also been reading for a lot of people in pain lately who are looking for forgiveness from the other side, who the spirits want forgiveness from. And I guess I just wanted to kind of key off this topic of when is forgiveness necessary, and that there are also times that you don't have to forgive in a way that makes it right of what happened to you or of what happened to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think forgiveness, like you said, it's a very important topic to discuss. And it's also, the three of us right now could bring up things that happened in our past that maybe we haven't forgiven ourselves for, and I hate that. This is what comes to mind. And you guys are going to be like, Rachel, really? I think there was a movie a long time ago, and they were on these buses, like all these souls that were on these buses, and they were going to the afterlife. And the one guy wanted to connect with this woman, but they went to like that the video of yourself, and so I am so scared of when I die and I have to watch the video of myself. What did I do? Like, it's something that has, like, that movie stuck with me for years. Well, obviously I'm talking about it now and I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to find it, but you know what I mean? Like that replaying of your life. And it's like, oh my God, when I was
But I've
7,
also seen from the other
pushed this motherfucker. Go ahead.
Right. Well, you have to go in that energy. Like when you really hurt somebody, that review includes sitting in that person's energy to feel
I
what
don't
you
want to do that. I just don't want to do that. Really don't, guys.
But you also get to feel all the good. You get to feel the good that you have created for people.
Find that movie. It traumatized me.
I feel like I know this movie.
I'm sure you guys do, and you're gonna be like, really, Rachel? That's a really dumb movie. Anyway,
I'm trying to scratch my brain. I don't know if I could think of it.
Jake, forgiveness. I'm saying, hold on, let me step back. Yes, forgiveness is very important. And I definitely have worked through issues of things that I've done in the past, and I've reached out to others, and I've taken ownership of the things that I've done to other people, and I've apologized. And with Melissa saying it's okay if they don't want to forgive me or whatever, but I have reached out to say, like, look, I did this, I've taken ownership, and I want to move forward. And that to me as a person right now is important to me. If I do slight someone, I want to forgive I want them to forgive me. I guess maybe not. I want to make sure I right the wrong. Like, that's very, very important to me. I don't want somebody to feel that I have done something to them, that is inflicted pain on them. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Jake.
totally get that.
I don't think it's ever too late to apologize to somebody for something.
Yeah.
If it's still weighing on you, there's a good chance it's still weighing on them. but it's also a place of, where's the peace,
Yeah.
and I think that's ultimately where it goes. And I don't think that you have to forgive everybody.
No.
That's very against my upbringing, but there are people who've just hurt me over and over, and I'll release it. I'm not going to hold on to it. It's not going to be this pain that lives with me. But if what they did is just so hurtful and, not in a good space, I don't have to give them, because I think the hard thing with forgiveness is sometimes it feels like you're giving somebody a blessing. To forgive is like, oh, I blessed you for what you did to me. And sometimes that just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. There's always that old saying, I forget where it's from, but they always say like forgiveness is for yourself and not the other person, right? And for me, I always kind of come back to forgiveness in the lens of, let's say that you had a dynamic with somebody that was tumultuous and they just really maybe hurt you, and in turn in that process really brought out the worst sides of you, and you reacted or stepped out of character, responded, behaved a certain way that maybe you're not proud of today, or maybe that you might feel guilt for or shame for. So I think there's always that lens of forgiving yourself in a situation, forgiving yourself and how you respond to a trauma, respond to pain, respond to a high stress situation. I think that we also have to constantly forgive ourselves for when we were just trying our best, right? We're not always superhuman, and I think it's easy to get caught up in those moments that I did trip and fall, and we think about those a little bit more hyperfixated rather than all of the good that came afterwards, right? Before or after. And I can even just relate it back to my own personal journey, somebody that lives with anxiety and depression, right? So, feeling that I robbed myself of an opportunity, or, not taking advantage of something in the moment, I actively have every couple of months, kind of just go through the drawers and give myself that forgiveness. I have to be gentle enough to forgive myself for going through that tough slump, because it almost gives yourself permission to release the burden of blaming yourself, right? And I think that, and kind of like what Melissa was talking about, how we don't necessarily always have to forgive everyone. I think that it's always a touch and go situation, right? A lot of people, for some people, the hurt is just too big and they can't find that within themselves to forgive. And maybe that's just part of their life journey, that they are supposed to hold on to that for a great deal of time. But I think it is rather difficult. There's a lot of facets to it, right? You have to, one side of it, be able to be the higher person and be like, you know what, I need to forgive this situation just because it's bogging me down, weighing me down, and robbing me from enjoying every other experience, right? And it's almost like a side of control too that comes into play too. When I keep this rage, when I keep this I'm going to get you back, energy within my heart. It's allowing the person and the situation to rob even more of your energy, even more of your authenticity, right? And so I think that it really kind of comes down to having to take a look, having to take a step back, and it could be uncomfortable to look at a situation, but really taking a look at finding ways to forgive, release something, and also forgive yourself for how that was just navigated. It can be uncomfortable and it can be hard to admit certain things. But I do think that ultimately, in the end, it really is quite liberating to release some of that baggage. Sometimes you have to just forgive because we can't hold on to anything else more, just because our arms are full, like we're carrying a bunch of groceries. So we just can't accommodate anything new.
And I think, to Melissa's point, that, we don't necessarily have to forgive, like, not get permission for what the other person did to us,
Right.
is okay. Like, we've been through sexual trauma, we've been through verbal abuse, mental abuse, and you don't necessarily have to, say it's okay that they did this. But I do think it's important to release the energy of the moment and the experience, and try to, because I think what we do when we have those moments of that traumatic experiences happen to us, we think it's our fault. Like, we called this to us, we did this to us. Well, there must be a reason why I was sexually abused, there must be a reason why this person treats me like shit. And then we go into shame and then guilt, and that is such a terrible feeling to have fester inside of you. And I would imagine people carry that for years and years and years. And I do think it's okay to forgive yourself. Like, we don't know when we're a child, when something happens to us, that, oh, well, we can't process that. We don't have the intellect to say, okay, this was bad and this is what I need to do to move forward. And it happens to us as adults too. But I think it's, go ahead.
Well, I'm just kind of on your point of kids. Like, I have read for so many people in the last couple of weeks that have been sexually abused by family members.
Yeah.
When they were young, and it's told like, well, you need to be good, like you don't talk about this, right? So that's kind of to that point of what you're saying, is that yes, forgive yourself. And when you forgive yourself, because it's almost like comforting yourself as you were as that child, like right from wrong now, of what's okay or not okay with your body or who you are. When you forgive yourself because there was nothing that you could do at the time, you release that. So again, you don't have to forgive what that person did, but by your self-forgiveness, that is like release of the situation.
And I think also when you don't release that off of yourself, that's where addictions come from. That's where you're either overeating, you're over sexualized, you're overspending, you're trying to release the energy and you may not know how to release it. And it comes up in a unhealthy version of yourself that you don't want. The name of that movie was called Defending Your Life, everyone.
Defending
I have seen that.
It's from 1991.
I've never heard of that movie in my life.
It is it's from 1991, Defending Your Life. It obviously has traumatized me.
Who was in that?
Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks.
Okay.
Oh.
It was a good movie, but I'm telling you, like every now and again, that bus scene and them sitting there watching their life. I'm like, I'm like Jake. I open up my drawer and I'm like, okay, well, I was a bitch to Melissa. I'm sorry. I was an asshole to Jake. I'm sorry. I accidentally moved my dog. Like, I'm not saying I'm a bad person, but I'm just like, oh God, I just don't want to do it.
I also think like with forgiveness, it's not a reason for excuses. Like, you really want to think about that apology that you're making to someone else.
And it needs to be sincere.
Right. I'm super stressed out. Like, these are all the reasons. Cheeto's back. The cat outside is walking around.
I thought she meant like Cheetos. Like, I'm like, I'll take some.
No, there's two
like Cheetos are back. Cheetos are back in.
So that's Cheeto. I don't even know where I was going now.
I want to add to your point. I think also people say they try to excuse their behavior. Yes. Well, this is just how I am. And we're supposed to be okay with you acting a certain type of way. And I think we do need to be accountable for how we present ourselves to others. It's super important that, the golden rule, treat yourself as you treat others and, whatnot. Like, you're a bitch, so I'm going to treat you like a bitch. Like, no, come on, take ownership for who you are as a person. Like that. And right now, all three of us are seeing this in our day-to-day lives, of people just popping off the handle and then blaming it on, well, you don't know what I'm going through. Well, you don't know what I'm going through. And please don't approach me in the type of way that you're approaching me. Like, let's have some common ground here. And according to Melissa, it's going to last through January. So buckle up, everyone.
And that's why I'm leaving. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, exactly. You're lucky. You're Mrs. Flying Town. She doesn't have to deal with any of the BS here.
That's right. I'm going to go hide in the mountains of the Highlands.
Jake, what else are you going to add about forgiveness?
I forgive myself for forgetting. So like I think that it's always even like a matter of the associations that we put with forgiveness, right? Because in the traditional context, forgiveness is about letting the other person off the hook, or kind of absolving that person of whatever wrongdoings. But for me personally, I feel like in my practice, like forgiveness is really about almost like taking the opportunity to step into a new chapter for yourself. But to do that, I almost have to forgive a situation, forgive a person, so that that old past version of myself can find closure and then allow my new version to continue stepping forward and not being drugged down with that baggage, or not continuously rehashing that in my mind. Because I think that that's also a big thing too. I work with a lot of clients who, we're always kind of trying to like recreate it in our brain, right? We're running down that storyline again, retelling it to ourselves, re-stressing ourselves out. It's almost like picking the scab and like re-wounding ourselves, trying to think about all the different ways that I could have handled it better, or that I could have said something, or I could have stood my ground X, Y, and Z ways, but I didn't, you know? So, and then in turn, that kind of festers. And I feel like we also find a way to blame ourselves in it. And it's almost like a vicious cycle. It's a hurt cycle here.
Yeah.
So for me, forgiveness really feels like it's an opportunity to almost be reborn in a sense and really reconnect with the power, the magic, the autonomy that came before the pain, that came before that traumatic event, or before that high stress situation, right?
And it's also stepping out of the cycle of repeating it over
Yes.
and over and over again.
And you picked something, you sparked something in my mind earlier, kind of what we were talking about. You said something about, you know, children don't know how to react.
Yeah.
So they can't, you know, we can't blame ourselves for things like that happen in childhood. And I would even go to say, like, I think I'm a firm believer that we are all the childhood versions of ourselves. We're just grown up. So I do think that we almost have to kind of keep that same sentiment for even our adult selves. You know, we don't always have the rules. We don't always have the best way to do something. And there really is no way to predict how you're going to react or move through a situation in a time of hurt, pain, grief, loss, stress, anger, you know, all of those things. And so I think that acceptance and forgiveness kind of live in the same house a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that those are both kind of like a 1-1 ratio. They happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
Nope,
And I
that's
think,
all my thought was.
and I think also, hurt people hurt others.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they lash out and they, you know, it just, it is like Jake said, it does feel like a vicious cycle. And I do agree that their acceptance and forgiveness are definitely partnered together. And I think the more we evolve and the more we, you know, delve more into our spiritual practices, the easier it is to kind of release that energy of the moment that happened to us. And then you
Hmm.
can shift into forgiveness and you can shift into acceptance. And it doesn't excuse what happened, doesn't give them permission to do it again, but does release that burden off of you.
Hmm.
Melissa, anything else you want to add for talking about forgiveness?
Yeah, I would say there's two pieces. Part one, you are the one who's been hurt by somebody else. So in that case, how can you forgive yourself if that's what's required, like that shame, that guilt, that piece of it? One of the things that I've done or will have others do is write it all down, burn it. Burning
Yeah.
releases it,
Hmm.
releases that energy. Or I'll have people talk it into a flower and then put the flower in the water so that the river, the emotions can kind of carry that away. And that's no longer yours to hold on to. And, you know, really looking at that, there are many responses that we can have to situations. We can fight, we can flight, and freeze is the other one that a lot of people don't know. Like when the rabbit, they freeze. So a lot of people feel guilty that they froze in a situation, but that is a natural protection instinct.
Yeah.
So, you know, and for somebody who is the one who did hurt another person, and you've offered your forgiveness, or, you know, you're sorry for that forgiveness, and maybe it didn't come, the best thing I think that you can do is to take stock of who were you at that time? How have you evolved? How can you continue to evolve? How can you really work to not be that person that you were?
Yeah.
And it's not holding that sword over your head of what you did. You know, you have to find forgiveness or a way to make it right with yourself. And obviously some things are so much bigger than we can do on our own, which is why, you know, going to talk to somebody is helpful.
Yeah.
Whatever, there's lots of different modalities, whether you want a counselor, a life coach, whatever it may be that you feel the most comfortable with. But, you know, really working on that piece within to release. I think that is the most important part.
I think that's really a beautiful way to put it. Jake, anything else you want to add?
No.
Alrighty. On that note,
You put me on the spot. I was trying to see if there was anything.
I'm really upset that Jake's not eating chips. So I
know.
will forgive you for not eating chips. And on that note, everybody have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.